Morning, everybody. I decided on a whim that we would just do a digital SIG because I couldn't come up with anything else for this Saturday morning. And that's just easy. And I thought, oh, no problem. People are just going to show up and we'll do a show and tell. But given who I am, I can't help but make a presentation. So we're going to start off with a brief presentation. And it's the outgrowth of something that Tim included in last Monday's Fusion 360 class. Those of you who aren't aware, we have a continuing series on Monday evenings where Tim is teaching us how to use Fusion 360. And we covered a feature that I had used in other packages before. In Fusion 360, it's called Canvas. And you can take images of the world and sort of use them as your guiding light for how to design something. And so I happened to be kind of enthusiastic about that feature, and I went ahead and did 2 projects this week along those lines, and I wanted to introduce you guys to that feature and show you what the results were so far. And then I'd love to turn it open to you guys and just say, what in the heck have you guys been doing with all this time on your hands and digital tools in your life? Marty, I remember from last night, had gotten that little laser, and even in her very first cut, was doing some really cool stuff. Hopefully you guys have some things to share, and we'll continue on after the presentation with that. Any questions or comments before we get started? This is Saturday morning. You guys are all relaxed, just sort of kick back, right? Either that or you're all muted and forgot you were muted, one of the two.
Good morning, Travis.
Oh, thank you. There we go. It's something.
I'm having a donut and coffee. So.
Oh, hi, Jeff. How you doing? We've got somebody who's on the outside called Owner. It makes me suspicious.
Yeah.
Let me just message them real quick and just see who they are.
How do you know it's Saturday morning?
They're all quiet. Oh, you're right. They're all the same. Good point.
It's boring.
Yeah, exactly. While that Owner waits to reply to me, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. It's just a quick presentation on 2 projects. And it's in my browser. So we'll go here. Nope, that wasn't what I wanted. Can you guys, what do you guys see on your screen right now? Do you see tracing a canvas?
Explorer window.
Okay, so I have to redo that. Let me reshare and get the right screen here. Here we are.
And what are you doing with Explorer? I thought you were a Mac guy.
I have several Macs, but I actually have one more Windows machine than Macs because there's certain tools like vCarve.
Absolutely.
That,
okay.
And it just pivots the whole thing in the direction of Windows being attached to machines.
Sure does. Okay, thanks.
And holds us all back.
And holds everybody back. That's right. I want to present. Here we go. So this is, again, based on a class that Tim gave us just last Monday. And it starts off with a project called the Pandemic Skeleton Key. Gary had this idea, probably in conversation with Dallas, that maybe we could bring in a few accoutrements into the shop so that people could be even more safe. And that something like this, which this was just an image from an ad in an email that Gary got from Asia, but this is a gizmo that you can use to, for instance, if you hook it on your finger and then go to a door, you can hook on the door handle and pull the door open. You can also use the end to point and push buttons. And this little arm's length kind of gizmo might be something that we would make and make available in the shop. Anyhow, he just sent me several images. This is the best of the images, and it's not very good, but it's not the right dimensions. It's askew, so it's not the right length, but still, that's the best I had. Using this feature with Canvas, you just bring an image into Fusion 360, and then you go about designing on top of it. Okay, so in this case, you know, you can see I had a bunch of line segments, positioned a circle, and then started putting in a bunch of fillets in the corners here, and just made it look generally like what that image was all about. Once you do that, you can go ahead and extrude it upward and give it some shape. I also ended up putting tiny fillets all around the outside to round it off. And it looks like perhaps a version of what you'd want. So this is then what I then exported as an STL, the file format we use with a 3D printer, and produced one. So there you had an example of just an image from somewhere and bringing it into the real world. When Tim did that in our class, he just went searching for cutting boards, found a pretty interesting one, and ended up replicating it in such a way that from where he ended, we could have ended up putting it into the, I have to let 2 more people in here. Although that other person didn't respond yet. Who is owner, I wonder? So Tim did it with cutting boards, and we can do it for all sorts of things. That got me thinking about a second project, which I'll go ahead and get into in a second. But I didn't particularly like that little smart key design, because it turns out that if you're 3D printing it, even when you put in a lot of infill, it's not really great as a bottle opener. It's just not rigid enough. So why have a false hope in there? And I saw this design. Here you can see it in use, pushing buttons in an ATM, hooking on a door handle, pushing the crosswalk signal. But this is what did it for me.
Is
Look
this
at
made
that.
out of aluminum?
They tend to have a copper electroplating for conductivity. That's at least the 2 that I've seen. They made a point of saying that they were conductive through and through. So I guess that was for your capacitive displays, that you could actually hold it in your finger and still affect the display. But the reason this is so perfect is, I mean, it's square on, right? It's going to be so easy to get this thing copied into Fusion 360 and to do design around. But I wanted to have you guys see what it is we had learned and realize the possibility. But as I said, I ended up moving on to a second project, which has been in my head for a while, primarily because there was evidence in my house. Between the house and the garage is a courtyard. And I looked on Google satellites 7 or 8 years ago when I moved here. And the pictures then were several years old. And one of the previous owners had had a big lattice structure between the 2. Therefore giving some shade to the courtyard. And this is the courtyard. And if you look along this edge over here, you can see that there's evidence there used to be something there. See that? And I thought, well, if I could get a shade going across, maybe I could use the courtyard a little more often than I do right now. And I found this particular product after combing through Amazon. I rather like it because it's a simple structure. It's just a cable structure that just drapes canvas, and it can retract to next to nothing. It seemed like a pretty easy thing to pull for use and hide when you didn't want to. And so I went ahead and took the picture and then sort of sketched it up. They come in various lengths. My courtyard's 20 feet wide, and I could fit 2 7-foot wide canopies, much like we saw in this picture. I think these are 4 feet wide, but imagine 7 feet. That kind of a setup in this context. And you can see the yellow here. That was to just let me know how this thing would drape across. So this was the basic idea. And so using the same technique, I went ahead, took a picture of the side of my garage, taking a notice of the previous place where it had been mounted, and then looking for where the holes had been for whatever structure was there, and trying to leverage the prior thought that had been here. So I found 5 pre-drilled holes along here, and I decided I was going to use Fusion again and the canvas feature to design what I needed, which was some probably 2 by 8, 8 feet wide, done in some special way. So this isn't properly placed, but the reason that I showed you this right here is if you bring an image in from the outside world, Fusion 360 has no idea how big or small that image is. and you can do what's called, I think it's called scaling. And so I measured from the top of this light fixture to this corner right here, and it was 155 inches. So I went ahead then and rescaled the image within Fusion 360 so that this picture now represented the real world. And then I brought in, I drew up a 8-foot long 2x8 right here, and you ended up with then being able to start fiddling with it, but to size. So I know how big this thing is in the context of this area. And I want to continue to design. This may look a little bit goofy to you. I'll explain it in just a second. Let's see who's hissing there. Hopefully it's not hissing as in boo, hiss. Okay, we're fine now. Anyhow, I went ahead and did the design. These are all, you can see that there are lots of nodes in here. That's why it's a little blurry. But two things I'd like to draw to your attention. One was that when I mount this thing, which will be along the bottom half here, it will drape down 17 inches. So I can see exactly how I needed to have it. And it's going to be several inches higher and off a little bit to the right. But it needed to be such that it didn't come down below here. And the other thing is, I just wanted it to be something not boring. So I took the contour of the roof line here. This slope is the same as this slope here. And also, I wanted to sort of put in some coding. So why in the world would I have 4 of these and 6 of these and 8 of these, and then use the mirror function to do the same thing on the other side? Well, because my address is 468 B Avenue. And I just thought, wouldn't it be fun to just sort of build that little code into this thing and allow me to make it a little bit more than just a boring board.
Somebody has too much time on their hand.
Or trying to come up with content for a digital SIG, one of the two. Anyhow, when you're done doing all of your design and you go ahead and extrude it and give a sense of what this thing will look like, you have essentially in the digital world what you want to create. And then from within Fusion 360, you can export things as SVGs, SVG being one of the vector formats we can use for moving things around. And the screen you're looking at right now is where I sent that SVG. This is part of the Shaper tool website. The way the Shaper tool works is if you choose to use it this way, you don't have to. You can put things on a thumb drive locally. But if you choose to do it this way, you design something such as this, and you save the SVG and send it to this, the Shaper Hub Cloud. And you can store pictures, and it's not really remarkable in the sense that you can define your project and put in pictures and save files and descriptions, etc. But this is an image of what it's going to look like. The files are here, and then this is the magic. Copy files to my Shaper origin. So next time my Shaper origin is plugged in, it connects to Wi-Fi, and it receives files from the internet. And then you can see them on your display. So here you have an example. This is after I have scanned my board and brought the image in, I took the design and then properly positioned it on the board so that it knew how to connect the design to reality. And that is not just because of what I've done here, but also importantly because of these tapes. This tape is what calibrates the design with precision to the real world. And this is the display you have on the Shaper origin. And on any given vector, you can say whether you want to do a cut on the line, inside, outside, or you can do pockets. Okay, so this is an example of where I was doing a pocket, and here you see those X's showing up. And this tape is what keeps all the precision in place. Now this was kind of a challenge because it was so long and so skinny. Getting it perfectly lined up was tough, so I decided I would just I'd come at it from both ends. My deviation gets a little bit off a little bit here, like probably a 1/4 inch off of the edge over here. But given that it's 10 feet up or whatever, it's not going to be a big deal. Anyhow, that's where I am as of that. Those pictures were taken 20 minutes ago, so I'm just progressing through this thing. But This was to set the stage for a show and tell. And this show and tell is my contribution with along with a pitch to get back to some of these other things that we have going on, which are, for instance, Tim's Fusion 360 class, because that's where I learned this, and that's where you two could learn things. So let me stop sharing my screen, go back to where we were. Ask if you have any questions about that. And then I'm going to say, Tim, would you answer them?
Just a comment, Travis.
Yeah.
One of the things I was really looking forward to with the class is seeing people do things that didn't immediately occur to me to do. And what I like about this application, what you've done is use the canvas, something to trace, which is sort of what everybody shows you the canvas is for, but in fact, to use it as the backdrop or the setting into which to create or drop a design. That's great. I love it.
Cool. By the way, guys, that's the Tim that teaches the class. Any other questions? Anybody think they would actually put one of those skeleton keys to practical use?
No, but I have a bottle opener, an extruded aluminum bottle opener that I'm using as a test case to do the canvas fusion, import, calibrate, extrude, fillet, all that kind of
Cool.
stuff.
Great.
To kind of go along with some class lessons, because if you don't use it, you lose it. So I don't want to do that, but that's a great application for it.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure about calling anything a skeleton during this pandemic thing.
I didn't think it was a good name either. I agree. I'm not sure that was good marketing. Okay, I had one thought that occurred to me when Paul was talking about this aluminum. You know, we do an awful lot of wood amongst us all, a little bit of acrylic and ABS. I'm curious, does anybody here mill aluminum or other soft metals on a regular basis?
Not on a regular basis, but I have done some.
And your new mill, which I hope you'll show us at some point here,
Yeah.
Will allow you to do soft metals, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, do you do any milling in aluminum?
Oh, I'd love to, but I don't have the Bridgeport that I used many, many years ago, but would love to have one of them. And then, of course, I'd have to build a new garage to.
Right, and then there's that, right?
But no, I would love to work in metal, but not at this point in time.
How about the
Yeah,
other
I've
Paul?
done some work in aluminum using standard hand tools and power tools.
Oh, okay, but not necessarily with a CNC.
Not yet.
Okay,
I'm putting it together.
next week. Okay, next week. Paul, did you have any experiences, Paul Williamson?
Yeah, I have hang on. I have a small Tormach mill, and I've done some work in aluminum on it.
Oh, wow.
I do it regularly, but as regular as any of my tools get exercised.
I make that same mistake all the time. Tools versus toys. Let's open it up. Who's got something they've been doing recently that they'd be willing to share?
So let me share, if you don't
Now, guys,
mind.
don't fight. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, if you want to admit my iPhone, I can use it as a camera to show this. I'm putting together this morning a new Shapeoko that arrived late last night. And I can talk to you a little bit about some of the new. Turn this off. How's that?
Still echoing.
Did it?
You
I
need
gotta
to disable on your PC. It's in the audio, in the mute button that you can turn off your audio. It's in the audio settings there.
Okay, that should do it.
It did.
Okay, good. Sorry about that.
So should we go full screen to your phone?
Yeah, just got to figure out where the button for that is. There
No,
we go. Okay, here we go. Okay. And now I can, should be able to flip the camera.
Wait a minute.
Okay. How's that?
I haven't got you full screen yet. I lost where you were. Oh, there you are. Okay. Let's see if we can make you the spotlight. Ta-da! Yes, show us what you got.
Okay, so I bought a new Shapeoko. It's the XL is the one I got. It arrived late last night, and I wanted to talk really briefly about some of the stuff that is included now as part of it that were options before, that were upgrades that Mark did, that he talked about the other night. I bought the Z Plus upgrade.
Oh, nice.
Is right here. So now the sad news there is that there's a missing piece. They didn't send me the tremolo plate that attaches the spindle.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, so they're FedExing me one of those. So what have they included that's new? One thing they've included is these eccentric nuts for all of the wheels. And so all over, so there are 6 eccentric nuts that allow you to really position the V wheels for, just to get the proper grab on them.
And did they give you any Loctite as well, or no?
Yes, they did send some Loctite.
Okay, cool.
They also have the cabling. The belts are now have steel belts steel
Sweet.
cords in the belts. So that is going to keep them from flexing as much.
Yeah.
In addition to that, the wiring, I don't know if this was standard or not, but the wiring harness is all in these little tracks now.
Oh, we had to put them in. Yeah.
Yeah, which is nice. It's all pre-wired on that. So offhand, those are the things I remember that are new. But I remember when Mark talked about his upgrades, I thought and then I went and I looked online and saw they were now standard. I thought that would be a really good thing to have. So
Yeah. Can you just tell people who don't know about that Shapeoko XL, how big it is, what your spindle is, what it costs, that kind of thing?
Okay, so I got the XL, which is, I believe it cuts about 16 by maybe 36, approximately. I haven't got it memorized yet. And then the Z-axis, of course, with the Z Plus, that's a screw drive, so very accurate Z-axis, gives something like 6 or 8 inches there. I think these rails on the side, they've been modified, I guess, from the original. But this is less expensive than the Z-axis that Mark got, because they found a way to make it just as rigid with a little less. It's not quite as hefty, so it costs less. Like I said, I think I said this is the XL. So
Yeah. What did you get for a spindle?
Oh, one of the problems was I kept waiting for the spindle that comes with it, that you can buy with it, to become available, but they've been sold out. So I bought another DeWalt as a spindle.
Got it.
And if I really get into this, I will probably go the route that Mark has with a water-cooled spindle.
Right. Cool.
So,
How much was the upgrade for the Z?
okay, so you asked me about price. The XL, I believe, was like $17.49 or something like that. The Z Plus, I think, was $120 or something.
Really? That's all? Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't that much.
Huh.
The whole thing was just over $1,800.
The one that was available as the first version of the HD, that is to say, the muscly Z-axis, was $450. So
Yeah.
if you can get yours for 120, that's pretty cool. And you went from 3.5 inches clearance to how many can you get on that?
It's at least 6. It's either 6 or 8.
Wow. Very cool. That's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Anybody else have something they'd like to share?
Well,
a while ago, we were talking about aluminum cutting. And I just wanted to say, I have a hobbyist combination mill and lathe in my garage. And then, of course, at the school that I work at, we have a big CNC router with about a 4-foot by 4-foot base. And we cut aluminum all the time on that. So I have some experience with cutting aluminum.
Yeah, for your robots, you need that, right?
Yeah, it's just about all aluminum whenever we have to make our own stuff.
Yeah, yeah, cool, cool. Anybody else? Marty, you said you were going to show something. Come on, show it. People didn't get a chance to see what you did.
Well, I have a question for Jim while Marty's thinking.
Sure.
What kind of an extrusion product do you use for robotics, you know, the track mechanisms for assembling the skeleton of the robots? Not a T-track or unistrut, but some other types of extruded tracking systems, racking systems?
Yeah, in general, the way we build the robots is we get rectangular tubing, typically 1 inch wide by 2 inches tall. And then we throw it on the CNC router and drill holes all the way through it. And we attach gearboxes with wheels on one end and the gearbox and the motor on the inside end. And that's our base structure. And then on top of that, it's pretty much we customize whatever we need to make. We almost can make anything on the CNC router. We don't have any lathe there really, so we try to do everything with the router that we can.
Okay, yeah.
There's that 80-20, you might be aware of that.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. It's kind of costly and it doesn't have all of the smaller scale. I mean, it's big, beefy stuff.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like 1 inch by 1 inch racking system that you can build little tabletop robotics stuff with.
Yeah, we use that just a little bit. It's a little expensive, and since we can make things overnight very, very quickly, we tend to do everything with the router that we can.
And just
we can do it quickly.
Base tubing and then drill holes wherever you need them type thing. So.
Right, and typically with McMaster, you order it one day and you get it the next day.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
They are incredible. Yes. Okay.
So
thanks.
Quick turnaround is our goal.
We've got, before we turn to Marty, because I kind of put her on the spot, we do have somebody with their hand up, which is Dallas. So why don't we turn to him next? I guess he forgot he put his hand up. Okay.
The only thing I was going to mention is I knew Jim did a lot of aluminum, and I wanted him to speak up, but he did.
Got it. Okay. So Marty, just because I loved what you showed us last night, what I loved particularly was how this was the first thing you did as a project after getting your Ortour laser working. And I just thought it was such a great example of what you can do. Do you happen to have that still available to show us?
Yeah, let's see if I can find that again. That was on review. Oh, come on. Oh, you know what? I've got this in full screen, so I have to exit full screen. Sorry.
That's okay. If anybody's curious, I believe that background is from a trip to Norway.
Wait, the Sonia Fjord.
Fjord. While Marty's looking that up, anybody got any other things they want to bring up? Doug, what have you been up to, man? I know there's always an answer to that. Can you unmute?
Let's see, just for the heck of it, I was like, let me see if I can drive the Ortour with a Raspberry Pi. So I went looking around and found some software on the Raspberry Pi that CNC, what is it, Junior? JS?
Website name? The website name?
It's yeah, the name of the product.
Oh, okay.
But it's designed more for CNCs than lasers.
Yeah, yeah.
But basically, it's just, Raspberry Pi, throw some Node.js on it, which is JavaScript engine, and adds a web server, and you do just remote control of your CNC.
And it's working?
Pretty easy, yeah.
Wow, great.
So it was pretty easy to set up, surprisingly, and stuff. Turned on the spindle, and the laser, laser turns on, because that's that's how our laser turns on and off.
Yeah.
By, spindle. Yeah, and since the Raspberry Pi has a camera interface, so I went ahead and got that going too. So if I ever want to move the thing off to another room or whatever, just throw it on the Raspberry Pi. But at the same time, the Raspberry Pi, I also have over on the other side, I have 3 3D printers that are controlled by Octopi.
Oh yeah.
So they have a web interface, and you basically the Prusa slicer, you can enter in the URL to your Octopi instance and just slice and ship it to the printer, start working.
Yeah, I remember when they said they were adding better Octopi compatibility to the Prusa slicer. I'd never actually seen how that was done. There are a variety of us on this call who have looked at the Octoprint rather at different times. Paul, you and I were thinking about it for maybe the one at the shop. I know Dallas was curious about them. Maybe sometime we can get a high-level overview of just Octoprint, Doug, if you would be willing to talk to us sometime about that. You say you've built 3?
Sure. Yeah, right now 2 of them are online. Third one's not been going. I think I got a wiring issue with it, but
yeah, no, I don't mean to bring it up right now, but I'm just saying, as topics come up, it's just kind of fun to say, well, why don't we pursue that if there are a bunch of people interested? And I know of at least 4 on this call who have talked about the Octoprint. So yeah, that might be interesting. You're the only one on this call almost guaranteed who ripped the logic guts out of their Artur and stuck a Raspberry Pi in. Guaranteed. What was that?
What is a Raspberry Pi?
There's evidence. It's a single board computer, $35. Remarkable thing that sort of affected the world of education and makers like crazy. There it is. That little board, $35. And it really is a decent computer now. I wouldn't have said that, Doug, about the 3, although people claimed it, but the 4 is really like a computer.
Yeah, it's pretty peppy.
Yeah. So Marty, you got...
What does it control?
Go ahead.
You mean you put your light burn on it? I don't understand.
Well, no, in this case, no, I don't put light burn on it. Light burn doesn't actually run on it right now, but it can basically light burn not only is a program that lets you take designs and manipulate designs and generate the code, the string of commands that your laser uses to make your product. It's those two pieces. Make the design and generate the G code. I guess it's 3 pieces. Generate the G code and ship the G code to your laser. Yeah. So for the most part, you don't need to have light burn connected to your laser directly if you don't want to. You could have light burn save the G code off, and then you can just send that with whatever to your laser or your 3D printer. And it's kind of the same thing. There's this G code file that is your basically all the instructions for your robot to make your product is all stored in that G code file.
So the Raspberry is what's sending it to it?
The
Actually-
Raspberry Pi can be used to do that, but there's also a lot of software for the Raspberry Pi that can do the slicing and do the stuff. You can run Inkscape on the Raspberry Pi.
But Doug, in your instance, is it
Yep.
fair to say that your Raspberry Pi is sort of serving the same purpose as the Auteur logic board on
No.
the laser?
I didn't debrain the
Oh, you didn't?
Auteur.
Okay.
No, it's still running Gerbil.
Oh, okay. I was thinking, Marty, when he was describing it, you know how you and Ed both needed to get new boards from the folks at Auteur or Best Gear.
Right.
Remember how you needed to get one? Or at
Yeah.
least that was the thought. I was thinking that Doug had gone ahead and actually swapped out that board for a Raspberry Pi, but he's got it just before that board. And so a simple way of describing this, if it had been reality, was assume the board that you have was gone and his Raspberry Pi was there. I know it can do that, but that's not what Doug did in this instance.
Doug, you're basically using it as a printer spooler, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a print. Yeah, it's the basic part. The G-code sender is like a print spooler. But both,
So you're freeing up your computer.
Pardon me?
So basically what you're doing is rather than having your computer tied up with Lightburn to do a long run on the Auteur, you can just download it to the Raspberry Pi and let it control the laser while you take your computer and go do something else. Is that the objective?
That's basically one of the things it does, yeah. But like, because generally when you are doing that, there are some times where you want to do things like move your device, set a few parameters. So lots of these G-code senders become more than that. They, just like Lightburn was really almost originally was just a G-code sender. And then Oz just started adding all this capability that you would normally find in Inkscape in a graphics program. It's allowing you to do more in the app. Same thing with like Octoprint. It allows you to move your robot around. You've got things you can look at. You could go ahead and bring up a console and type in G-code commands. Essentially, under the hood, it's a G-code sender.
Okay.
And yeah, you copy the file over to it, and then just let it go. No,
I love the way that those of us who are familiar with the notion of print spooler, because that used to be a thing a long time ago. If you know about print spoolers, then that's a great synopsis of a key part of what is being done there. I think we all probably remember print spoolers. Anybody else have something they'd like to share?
Well, did you want me to show the thing I showed last night?
Yeah, you're one of those who might have something to share. Sorry about that. I forgot to come back to you.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. So share my screen. So this was my first project. And I used the tracing stuff that we learned in a couple other sessions to do this little image from the internet.
And why did you do this? Who asked you?
I did this, my granddaughter's name is Phoebe, and this is a character from a book she likes. And rough means love, because little kids can't say love. She doesn't even speak yet, but she's only a year old. But I sent this to my son-in-law to give to my daughter on Mother's Day tomorrow.
That's awesome. So personal in so many ways. That's great.
And then this, my daughter asked me to make for her husband's annual movie fest about Keanu Reeves. And so I did this yesterday.
Is it a Keanu Reeves music video movie festival?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I don't know stuff like that. But anyway, she sent this picture and said, could you do it? So I did it. And this is my second thing I ever did.
That's great.
And in theory, there are two different levels of in
Yeah, we
green.
need to work on the grayscale for you. Haven't got that.
Yeah, she's really happy with this. I sent her this picture and she's really happy with it. So I'm not going to play around with
Great,
this.
that's what matters.
one.
That's what matters.
And yeah, I got to fix up these little dots.
So can you tell people how that's done?
Well, you told me I have to set the minimum setting on for the power or for the speed?
For the power, min power.
For the power.
Yeah.
Except that in my version of Lightburn, when we looked at it yesterday, we couldn't find it. So
All right, we'll have to work on that. But the point there is that the reason those dots are there, you guys can see them in the vectors around the number and the acronym. That's when the laser is stopping or starting. So it slows down and it ends up overburning in those particular spots. So if you change your min power to much lower, then it actually decreases power as it slows, and you should be able to have those dots disappear. We're gonna figure that out for you, Marty, when we get a chance.
also wanted to show you, can I just switch or do I have to stop this and start again?
If it's inside of the same viewer, then you don't have to, but if you're gonna change to a different app, you have to just choose to screen share and then choose the right app.
Okay, wait a minute. Oh wait, so screen share.
Yep. And now find the right one.
This one.
There you go.
This was the website I was talking about where they posted these videos on how to fix
Oh yeah.
things about your 15-watt laser. Like if the x-axis is wobbling, if these things are not at an angle, the right angle, if something's too heavy, how to adjust the tension of the Y belt, blah, blah. They've got several of these things for the 15-watt that are at the front of this because they were most recently updated, I think. But then they've got stuff for other of their machines.
Hey Tim, we were talking about you last night because this is like, oh, bear with me.
Marty, all those would be applicable to the 7, the 15, or the 20. Those are all mechanical. So
I'm not familiar with, I'm only familiar with this one machine.
yeah, the only thing that changes is that little laser module itself. That's the only difference between the three.
Okay. Yeah, I found that to adjust the Y belt, it's not just a matter of moving this little holder, because loosening that screw allows you to move this little holder, but mine was already as far to the right as it would go, and I needed to make it more. So
yeah.
I had to take that screw all the way out before I could pull that belt tighter.
Yeah, I had discovered that actually.
I was leery to do it. I didn't know if the backside, if the nut was going to drop somewhere. I couldn't figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found you have to be careful when you do that. If you pull the belt too much, it'll pull the little block over and the mechanism will stop on the block before it reaches the limit switch homing. So there's a very narrow little window in there that you can work with.
Yeah.
And so in order to try and make mine a little easier, I sanded the little block down a little bit, and then I went a little too far and it broke on me. So I actually ended up remaking my own little block there. But it does work well. The problem I had with the wobbly wheels is different, but Justin agreed he's going to send me 10 wheels. 2 bad ones. So if anyone else needs spare wheels, I should have them pretty soon. And in the meantime, Doug gave me a couple of suggestions on how to go about straightening out what I have. And that gave me a slightly different idea. I ended up just using a bunch of washers to pull the rubber back and forth a couple times and straighten it out. And that looks like it's worked. I haven't had time to really test it out. I got a little busy with some other stuff yesterday, but I hope to later today see if I got it straight enough now.
Guys, I'd actually like to use this moment to make a point which I often make, and that is the benefit of having this community. I think back to how Saeed is really wondering whether or not this laser will do the job he needs in certain instances. So I loaned him mine and he can actually figure it out. Marty had a problem with her controller and yet Doug could help her. Tim's going to get a bunch of spare wheels, and there may come a time when someone needs it. So as we are here as a community and people have different skills, different resources, as long as we're getting together periodically, we can benefit from that. So Tim, that was a great example of just one of those, I consider that just front and center, a benefit for us continuing to rally around themes of interest. And while that one was particularly laser oriented, so long as we're connected, we can get these benefits from being a part of the community. And thanks for making that offer, Tim. That's generous of you.
And Doug was extremely helpful to both Marty and me.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Very generous.
That's great.
Hey, Marty, how about posting your a link to those YouTube videos? Those look very interesting.
Yeah, if you could put it into the chat window on here.
I did about 8 o'clock this morning. I put them on
The forum.
the forum, the one where all the other comments about fixing your machine is.
Perfect. Perfect.
And I also added a link to a video about some guy demonstrating what he tried cutting everything.
Oh, cool.
And included trying to cut the glasses, the green glasses that they send. And he showed that the laser does not cut through them.
So for those who don't know, the forums are at forum, F-O-R-U-M .sdfwa.org. And you probably put it into the laser special interest group, right?
Yes, but there are several in there. It's like, I think it's under the one
The
that
low
was started
cost,
way early.
And if you did it this morning, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I wondered if it was under the low cost diode one.
It was the one where it's, I don't know.
Guys, it's going to be on the right-hand side. All the most recent posts are on the right-hand side at the top of the site. So you'll be able to find it quite readily if she just posted it this morning.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Anybody else got something to share?
Well, I wanted to ask, I would like to use I intend to use this outside because I don't have any exhaust system in my garage. And I need to put a box around this so that if anybody peeks over the fence or something, they're not going to look at my laser. It's so.
Has anybody built an
try
enclosure?
to protect their laser in this way, or do you just do it in a closed garage where nobody else is?
Well, I was thinking about kind of replicating the enclosure that we have over the 3D printer at the shop. I don't know if that was just kind of like build it on a whim, but that way an enclosure you could open it up, and then you could also have an exhaust port in the back to exhaust things and put in slots. I don't know if that would be a viable.
It's viable in the sense that Dallas and I have built them, and we have the VCarve files for them. So if anybody wants to take those files and make an enclosure, I don't remember the inner dimensions. And obviously, if you
just size it for this guy with maybe 4 or 6 inches around the perimeter. But yeah, I mean, I'd appreciate taking a look at the files that were done, and
we'll get them
and
to you.
find the right products to maybe even get the right kind of colored plexiglass that would add to the safety of the laser light.
I will post the files in the forum. Somebody was talking though. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just thinking of making it on a cardboard because I don't use those other digital tools.
Oh, but you will.
I mean plywood, but no. This is enough.
Dallas, what did you want to say?
Yeah. What about the colored plexiglass? I've been trying to figure out what that is and what the right color would be to block this this frequency. Does anybody have that information?
I think that would be.
I don't, but I think if you Googled UV Lexan, UV polycarbonate, or UV plexiglass, I think you come up with something.
Yeah, the only thing I've found so far is like $300 for a 12 by 12 square or some ridiculous price.
I wonder if you couldn't put some sort of appropriate film over the plexiglass. There's a certain frequency of light that it's emitting, something like 450 nanometer.
Nanometers, yeah.
Yeah, and there are certain colors that would block that best. I'm just thinking economy here. I really like the addition, Paul, of making the plexiglass also be what protects you, so you don't have to deal with those just horrible glasses. So that's a worthwhile side project. If anybody does get that, if you wouldn't mind posting the results in the forum, that's an easy thing to add to even just existing enclosures, just so that you could put that light in there, which I don't know if any of you guys have spent any time around that light without having glasses on, but not looking at it. I find it gives me a headache. It really is not a pleasant light to be around. So if you had an enclosure that automatically protected you from it, that'd be great.
Are you talking about that blue light? I see, if I'm standing way back and got the laser part hidden, but I can see the light above it reflected on the wall, and it's blue.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And it may just be me who responds to it, but I find it really kind of unpleasant to be around.
How dangerous is that blue light that's reflected off the wall? Is it?
Anybody? I don't know.
Nah.
Paul, you don't think anything? Paul Williamson?
Yeah, I don't. Once it's out of focus, it's probably not going to be a big issue for danger, but it's going to be fatigue.
Fatigue. Okay, yeah.
I see some stuff that's a square foot for $17. It's a little bit better than 300.
There's an understatement. Did you put it into the Zoom chat?
Okay, I don't endorse it because I just found it on Google, but I will put it in the chat.
Okay, Lisa gets us into the right category, what to look for. You know, the last people to join us today was Lance. On my screen, he's at the very bottom. And I kind of wonder if he's got anything to share. Or if he's even listening. Maybe he's eating breakfast. Yeah. Good morning, Lance. Well, he unmuted, but we can't hear him.
Backing up just a little bit, you said, can you put the link in the chat? Once Zoom is closed, don't we lose that chat?
We do. We do. This is for just right now, if you wanted to capture it. It's there right now. Paul put it in there.
Yeah, so then what you can do is link on it, and then it's somewhere on your computer screen.
Agreed.
That's the intention then.
Yeah, if I remember to, I will capture it before we end. But as soon as I end this thing, we lose it. So I'll put it in my copy buffer right now.
Okay, thanks.
Does it stay in the recording?
It doesn't that I know of, no. Okay, guys, if you have more, now's the time to bring it up. Otherwise, you know, we could start winding this thing down after an hour, which is fine. Anybody got anything else they want to share? You guys all want to get on with today, yeah?
I could probably show those two web pages.
Yeah, please.
Let me see if I can share without being goofy here. Is this the right Chrome?
Good site, Paul. Open Builds. They've got some really good stuff.
Yeah, that link, I just searched for 450 nanometer filter. And actually this one filters 445 nanometer diode laser, 3 mil orange acrylic.
Okay.
Thick. You can always put some kind of a acrylic one-way sheet on the inside. Anyhow, it's there, and it may offer some ideas on a protective enclosure and the type of material. Yeah, maybe the I'm thinking, you know, a protected sheet on the front, and then plexiglass on the side and back and top, so that, you know, minimal cost, but you can still see what's going on, and if it's on fire, then you can, you know, turn it off.
Right. So Doug, what do you got there, Doug?
Can you see that?
Yep. Can everybody else see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is called CNC JS, and it's basically it'll do slicing. I mean, we're talking about 3D slicing 3D models and stuff for CNC. This was talked about in the Fusion 360 stuff that Tim was doing. And so, yeah, that's how I ended up finding this. So this is a web page. It's a web server app running on the Raspberry Pi, connected to my Porter 15-watt laser. It can connect to a number of different, I don't know if you see it in the bottom left-hand side, it has a Gerbil interface down there. So it can talk to Gerbil, and I forget what other.
Doug, just for clarification so that everybody's on the same page, what we're looking at right now is just a web page in your browser, but that is an application which you can use inside the web page in your browser to connect to your 3D printer where you have the Octoprint connected, right? And now we're actually looking through the camera on your Octoprint.
This is not Octoprint. Well, that doesn't help me anyways. This is not Octoprint. This is a Raspberry Pi running something called CNCJS for CNC control. And it's basically it's a separate computer. It's that little small computer. I have the USB port, USB cable coming from the 15-watt laser plugged into this little tiny computer, and it controls it just like you can see up here. You've got XYZ coordinates, and this is how you would manually move it around.
So those are your jog controls right there?
Jog controls, yep. Here's your feed speeds and stuff that you would set.
Okay, just so I'm keeping up with you, what are we connected to on the other end? Is it a CNC? Is it a 3D printer? Is it a laser?
This is our little 15-watt laser right now connected to it.
So we're connected, and you're not using an Octoprint, you're using that JS app.
This is an application called CNCJS. Yep.
Okay.
And up here you have home buttons. You can put it to sleep. You can unlock it. I have not figured out. Yesterday I was just messing around with it and was able to turn on the laser down here with basically the spindle.
Yeah.
Right now I haven't figured out how to re-enable it. I thought it was unlock, but I still can't get it. But I can hit test and the laser turns on and off right now. But this could be used for the laser or for a CNC.
Yep.
And just this could be in another part of the house. Because right now my Raspberry Pi is on Wi-Fi. So I don't have no wires connected to the laptop. And that device can be in the back, in the garage, wherever you want. What's nice is that you can see what you're doing, or see what the process, what's going on with the camera, showing you what your device is doing, where you are. It's got a slicer in here. I just haven't found. I put something in there, and it slices and generates G code. So that's. And I put a 3D model in there yesterday, and you just drag and drop it right on here, and it slices it for you and generates your G code. And I just haven't done anything with it yet, as far as actually, more than just turning the light on and off and stepping it.
Well, there's definitely a theme in here. It reminds me of how I used to have an Octoprint, and I found that what I really wanted to be able to do was monitor my prints from afar or monitor my laser from afar. And so on the very most simple end of things, just a streaming camera is what people can do. On the very high end of things, you could end up with something like this, where one interface could connect remotely to multiple devices, and you can control and view to monitor what your job is doing. So that I'm curious, how many people here, for instance, have actually a camera connected to their 3D printer or their laser, and they look at it from in the house? Let me see how I get the whole group here. Hold on just a second.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Well, I will when my 3D printer arrives.
Okay, so what is the do you know what you're going to get when your 3D printer arrives, in terms of what you're going to get as a camera, or have you not started that yet?
So I have a Raspberry Pi 4, so I'm just going to get the small camera and add on to it,
Okay.
and then do the Octoprint.
Okay, well, that's actually wonderful. There's so much that you can do with Octoprint. I found that I just walked out when I wanted to do those things, because I don't actually have, I tend to just do everything from the SD card when it comes to 3D printing. Years ago, when I started doing 3D printing, you couldn't trust a USB connection to have a steady flow. And so you always went to the SD card and then ran it directly on the printer. It's a habit I never broke. But I ended up buying just a $30 streaming camera on Amazon, and an app on my phone allows me to just check in anytime I want. So that's what I mean by the very simple end of the spectrum. We have somebody with a hand up here. Lem, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Lem? It's two people in a row who had speaker problems or microphone.
Yeah, I didn't have my webcam attached, unfortunately.
Got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have Octoprint running on my 3D printers, and I found that a webcam actually gives you a much better image than the small little Raspberry Pi camera does. So I attached a Logitech 720p camera to the Octoprint, and I'm getting pretty good images. And then I use Octolapse to do the time lapse.
Oh, that's cool. It just out of curiosity, because seeing those things, and when they're done well, the head is always out of the way, so you just see the image grow.
That's what Octolapse does. That it allows you to position the head where you want it.
Nice. And the bed in exactly the same position each time?
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. That's great. So you bought a Logitech camera. Paul Schenken, you installed a camera on the one at the shop. Do you remember what that brand was?
Well, that's the Larky application,
right.
And I think it's the Larky, one of their product of cameras, and boy, that thing is rock solid. Of course, it's not set up currently, but it's great, and it also has the ability to trigger a IO AC power switch to turn the thing off remotely. I mean, that was your rig, and it worked out, pretty well. So eventually it will work well again.
Again, when we get all set back up, but I think, wasn't it you, Lem, who, are you the one who got us the project that we did off of off of Thingiverse?
No, I don't think so.
Somebody else, I can't remember who it was, found this project that we ended up implementing at the shop, where on the one hand, well, let me go back to the basics. You guys, many of you have heard this story, so I'll just do it briefly. We couldn't do prints longer than a shop slot because we didn't want things running unattended. But that's not practical where 3D printing is concerned, because they take so long. So we had two things we needed to do if we were going to extend how long people could print. One was you had to be able to monitor your print remotely. And if you could monitor it remotely, you could do really long prints. But if in the event of a problem, you needed to be able to turn it off. So the first thing we needed to do was to be able to monitor it and turn it off. The second thing we wanted to do is, in the event of a fire, have it turn off automatically. So we have this little project, which many of you have seen and heard about, but it's a combination of a fire detector and this Larky camera, and together they allow you to do those two things, so that now you can start a print job at the end of the day in the shop, and you can let it print overnight. And so most prints can be done in that kind of a time frame. And in the event that it fails, because you checked in periodically and you see that it failed means you're going to end up with just a mess, noodle everywhere. So you want to stop it. But if there's a fire, it automatically shuts off. So we are safe to let it run. And while that is a concern in the shop, we all have that concern in our houses as well. So this is a project which, if I remember, I'll try to post it inside of the forums, but it is a great solution from Thingiverse. And Dallas, do you remember who it was that did that for us? I guess he's not right there at the microphone. Anyhow, somebody volunteered, found the project, volunteered, and did an implementation of that. It was really great, really a handy way to make sure you've got safety.
Have you all ever actually had fires on your 3D printer?
In all my years of printing since 2011, I have not ever personally experienced one. I had one friend who worked at Palantir who printed overnight and who did have a fire. But that was the only instance I've ever heard of. What are we looking at here?
Oh, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, this is an example of Octolapse printing on a Prusa printer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. Very nice. Very nice. So the bed is in exactly the same position and the head is out of the way.
Right.
And it just does time-lapse capture of images. That is so cool. That was called what again?
That's called Octolapse.
Octolapse. And do you put those mouse ears on your head?
I have them on my monitor, actually. You know, it's just a little bit of cheer during the day when you're reading all this bad news. I look up and see those mouse ears and kind of cheers me up.
Perfect, perfect. Okay.
So is that a plug-in to Octoprint?
Yeah, it's a plugin called Octolapse.
All right, cool.
It does a lot better job than the built-in time lapse because it positions the head out of the way, and then it gives you a much more pleasing result than the built-in time lapse does.
That's great.
Like it.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure that Doug will have that shortly on his machine. Anything else, folks? This is really, Mark, I guess, has his hand up. Let's see what he's got to say. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, somebody had mentioned 80/20 aluminum extrusions earlier. I decided to upgrade my XXL bed to that, which just came in this week, so I haven't had time yet to do it. But going to swap out to, they're basically 1x3 aluminum extrusions that get attached together and then become the rigid base of the XXL.
Oh, okay. So you're going to put what, a spoil board periodically on top of that bed of side-by-side 80/20?
Right. Yep.
Okay, okay. Yeah, we want to see pictures of that. That sounds really hardy. Are you going to use regular clamping and T-bolts?
Yeah, I may. It's going to be interesting as I get it put together.
Yeah.
Some guys have done some really neat stuff with this extrusion, including being able to kind of hang some off the front. You know, just like that jig was put together at the shop to be able to do kind of like finger joints.
What do you mean at the shop?
Oh, there you go. But some guys have started to do that with the aluminum too. It looks pretty easy to accomplish. So some interesting things there. I also picked up the JTech 7-watt laser add-on for the CFD. That just came this week too. So I got a couple projects here this weekend, next weekend. And then the 3D printer, I'm getting a Prusa and it's pretty back ordered. I'm expecting probably a month out.
Mark, you're overloading me with all these wonderful things you're doing. First off, the bed, that's basically a hack upgrade to your current. You have an XXL or XL?
XXL.
XXL, okay. But obviously, just for Ed's information, this could obviously be put on his XL as well. Then you went on to talk about it's something else, and then the laser head, right? Is that JS laser head that you were talking about the same one that Howard got?
I don't know. It's JTech, and they just have a nice kit that they put together specifically for the Shapeoko.
Got it. And it was a 7-watt?
Right.
Do you know how they measure that 7 watts? Only because we who have purchased the Auteur talk in terms of 15 and 20 watts, but those are input powers. Output's more like 4.5, 5.5. Is yours output power?
I don't know.
Okay, okay, just curious. What was the third project you had mentioned?
Just the 3D printer that's on
Okay,
order.
getting the 3D printer, yeah. Are you getting the Mark IIIs?
Yes.
And are you getting the multi-material add-on?
That one is, you can't even order it right now. So not now.
The burden of their success, they're always in back order. It's incredible.
Yeah. You know, they got their mini, but their mini, if you order it, it's all the way out past September.
Is it really? Wow.
Yeah, we got so many orders for that one. Yeah, it's interesting, but when I ordered it was like about a 3-week delay on the MK3S.
Hey, I'm just curious, Mark, do you know whether the Mini is that put off because of demand, or are they doing a redesign?
Well, it was a redesign, or it was new, I think, last fall.
It was. I have one. I'm one of the first ones, but it needed a little help.
It's not a redesign, it was demand.
Okay. Yeah, there's a small problem that I'm still trying to work through that has to do with, I won't get into the details, but it's beautiful until you try to make changes, and then you lose that factory calibration and you have problem. And so I was just curious whether they were redesigning based on what you learned, or whether it's just demand.
Part of their issue is, they dedicated some of their farm to creating equipment for first responders and stuff. So that's slowing things down.
Yeah. But it's a remarkably compelling price point at $350. So it's pretty darn easy. Even though it says it's a kit, it's essentially 2 pieces or 3 pieces that you end up mounting together. There's some cabling and such, but it's a really, less than 2 hours and you've got it built. And the way the parts you do aren't affecting calibration, so it comes very well calibrated. But if you have to wait till September, that's quite a wait.
Yeah.
Anything else, anybody? This is, I'm enjoying it, but I don't want to keep anybody longer than, I think these things start to get a little bit long, after around an hour and a half. We're not there yet, but if you guys don't have anything else to share, then we can wind it down. Anybody?
When the popcorn stops popping.
Okay, there's a good cue right there. Hey, and did you hear about the aluminum extrusion that Mark is putting on the bottom of his XXL?
Yes, and I just copied the link to it, and I'm taking a look at it right now.
Oh, okay, great.
Actually, I did find a more economical aluminum extrusion, like T-Track for comparison to the Rockler T-Track, and put it in the chat. It's called
that's the one I'm looking at.
orange aluminum. So
yeah, you're just trying to remind me to keep track of that, so I copy it and put it into the notes.
Yeah, please. Well, you're the driver of the bus here, so.
I want to make a couple of PSAs as we wind down here. One is that I was just on the Zoom site because I was downloading last night's, what was last night's session? It wasn't the epoxy resin, was it? No, it was the Lightburn 301 class. And when I was on the site, I saw a notice that said everybody should be upgrading their Zoom software to version 5.0, just because come the end of May, they're going to disable older versions. Okay, so if you want to keep playing in this arena, you need to upgrade to their 5.0 before the end of the month. Also, tonight at 7 o'clock, we have the first of a series that was named after a Zoom function. So you know when we actually zoom in on someone and they go full screen, like for instance, we're going to do a full screen here on Paul Williams, and ta-da, that's called the spotlight feature. Okay, ta-da, there you go, exactly. So we're starting what's called a woodworker spotlight, and that's where we take somebody from the big body of woodworkers we have in the community, and we interview them on their decades of work and see some of their actual product. Tonight, Mike McElney, who is going to be having these conversations, is interviewing Del Cover, who's been in San Diego for 40 years and has been producing things. He's got some really important influences that artists I wasn't aware of, but when I looked into what they had done, they were pretty significant players. And it's the first of this series called Woodworker Spotlight. But at 7 o'clock tonight, that's happening. So if you're curious to see some really great woodworking from someone who's been doing it for a very long time, that's a series that we're going to kick off. Somebody did raise their hand here. Let's see who it is. Oh, nope. Lem, did you raise your hand?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
It's down. Okay. All right, folks. Unless somebody's got something compelling they want to say right now, we'll go ahead and wind this down. But thank you very much for joining in these things. You can always see what's coming up on the website. We have a whole series of things over the course of the next 2 weeks, and it sure is easy, and you get to talk to people. How do you like that? People not in your house. How's that? Anyhow, thank you, everybody.
Well worth it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.